I never meant to stare. At least, not long enough for her to notice. But there was something about the way the late afternoon light caught in her hair, turning the brown into strands of gold, that made it impossible to look away. Mrs. Carter was standing by the kitchen window, sleeves pushed up, rinsing the last coffee cup from what had been an awkwardly quiet afternoon. My best friend, Adam, had just left for his evening shift, leaving me alone in their house. I should have gone too. Instead, I lingered, leaning against the doorway as if I had some unfinished sentence to say. "You're quiet today," she said without looking up. Her voice was casual, but there was something underneath it, like she wasn't asking about my mood as much as she was noticing it. I shrugged. Just tired. It was a lie, and I think she knew it. The air in the kitchen was warm, scented faintly with vanilla from the candle on the counter. Outside, a slow breeze shifted the curtains. Everything felt still, too still, like the space between two heartbeats where you're not sure if you should breathe. She turned then, drying her hands on a dish towel, her eyes meeting mine. "Don't look at me like that, unless you mean it." I blinked, pulse quickening. "Like what?" Her lips curved, but it wasn't exactly a smile. "Like you're thinking about something you shouldn't be." The truth was, I had been thinking about it. Not in any defined way, just flashes of what it might feel like to stand closer to her, to hear her laugh without Adam around, to touch the back of her hand and not pretend it was an accident. I tried to look away, but my eyes stayed locked on hers. I could feel the hum of something unspoken between us. She tilted her head slightly, studying me like she was waiting for me to say something that could ruin everything. "You've grown up," she said after a pause, her voice quieter now, almost reluctant. It should have been a harmless comment, but there was weight in it, a memory of every time I'd been in this kitchen before. The younger version of me grabbing snacks, Adam joking about homework, her telling us to keep our feet off the coffee table. Now I was here alone, taller, older, different. Her gaze lingered for a moment longer before she set the towel down and stepped toward me. It wasn't much, just 2 small steps, but enough to close part of the space between us. My chest tightened. Somewhere in the distance, a car door slammed. She glanced toward the window, then back at me, like she was measuring whether the moment was still safe. She began, but didn't finish. Her hand brushed the edge of the counter, fingers curling slightly, as if to stop herself from reaching toward me. The silence stretched, heavy with all the things we weren't saying. I swallowed, feeling the rush of every possibility and consequence at once. Then, the sharp trill of the doorbell. Her eyes widened just slightly, and whatever she'd been about to say was gone. She stepped past me toward the hall, her perfume trailing faintly in the air. I stood frozen, heart pounding, knowing that whatever happened next, we'd already crossed an invisible line. She came back from the door with a small grocery bag in her hands, her expression composed again, but her eyes didn't quite meet mine. "Neighbor," she said simply, setting the bag on the counter. "Dropped off some fresh bread." Her voice was lighter now, almost too light, like she was pulling the curtains closed on whatever had just happened. I stayed leaning against the kitchen doorway, still feeling that suspended moment from before the doorbell, the way her words had hung between us. I'd known Mrs. Carter since I was 12. Back then, she'd been the warm, put-together mom who always had snacks for us after school. She'd been married then, though I'd noticed over the years her husband's appearances had gone from occasional to rare, until one day Adam mentioned they weren't together anymore. I didn't ask questions. Some things you could tell were better left alone. But I'd also seen the way she'd started carrying herself differently. Less of the constant smile, more of a watchfulness in her eyes, like she'd learned to keep something in reserve. It made me wonder what had been taken from her, and what she was protecting now. "Adam said you were taking a year off school," she said after a moment, pulling the loaf from its paper. "Yeah," I replied. "Needed to figure some stuff out." Her glance was quick but sharp, the kind that could make you feel like she was seeing more than you wanted her to. Or maybe just needed a break from everything. I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell her I was fine. But the truth was, I had been drifting lately, working odd hours, avoiding questions about my plans, pretending I wasn't thinking about her every time I came over. Something like that. I said instead, my voice low. She nodded, but didn't press. Her fingers tore a small piece of bread and set it on a plate, sliding it toward me. The movement was casual, but when her hand brushed mine, the contact lingered for half a second longer than necessary. I don't think either of us breathed during that half second. I remembered a winter afternoon 3 years ago when I'd sprained my wrist during a game in their driveway. She'd sat me down in this same kitchen, wrapping it in ice, her hands careful but firm. Back then it had just been comfort. Now, even the memory of her touch felt different. "You've changed," she said quietly, almost to herself. There was no teasing in her tone this time. It felt like an observation she hadn't meant to let slip, a truth she'd been holding back. Our eyes met again, and there it was, the unspoken thing neither of us was ready to name. Outside, the wind picked up, brushing the curtain against my arm. She didn't move away. Neither did I. And for a long, suspended moment, it felt like the whole house was holding its breath with us. It was supposed to be a quick drop-off. Adam had texted me to grab the jacket he'd left at home before heading to the gym. I figured I'd be in and out in 5 minutes. Mrs. Carter answered the door in a loose sweater, hair pinned up in a way that looked both careless and deliberate. "He's always forgetting something," she said, stepping aside to let me in. I followed her into the living room, trying not to notice the faint scent of her perfume, the same one I'd caught lingering on my hoodie after the last time I'd been here. She handed me Adam's jacket, but neither of us moved toward the door. "You staying a while?" she asked casually, like it didn't matter. I hesitated. "I can." She gave a small nod, settling onto the couch with her legs tucked under her. I sat at the far end, but it didn't matter. The air between us was already charged. We talked in bursts, about Adam's new job, about the old dog she used to have, about nothing that mattered, until her phone buzzed on the coffee table. The name on the screen froze me. Mark. Her ex-husband. She didn't answer, just silenced the phone and set it face down. "You're quiet again," she said. I almost laughed. "You keep saying that. Because you keep doing it." I wanted to tell her it was because being around her was like standing too close to a fire. I couldn't decide if I wanted to step back or lean in. A knock at the door made us both flinch. She glanced toward the hallway. "It's probably," she stopped herself. Footsteps. Adam's voice calling, "Mom? You here?" She looked at me, eyes wide. In an instant, she stood, smoothing her sweater, and hissed, "Stay here." She stepped into the hall, her tone brightening in an instant as she greeted her son. I sat there, pulse hammering, every muscle tense. Their conversation was short, Adam grabbing something from his room, saying he was heading out again. When the front door finally closed, she came back into the living room, her shoulders sinking with relief. "That was close," I said quietly. Her gaze met mine, steady, but with a flicker of something dangerous behind it. "We shouldn't," she started, but the words faded. I shifted closer without thinking, my knee brushing hers. Her breath caught, and for a second, the only sound was the faint hum of the fridge in the kitchen. We were leaning in, too far, too fast, when she suddenly pulled back, standing quickly. "I can't," she whispered, almost to herself. But even as she walked toward the window, her hand trailed along the back of the couch, fingertips grazing the cushion right where I sat, like she couldn't quite let go. I sat there, staring at her, knowing we were both already in far deeper than either of us would admit. It had been a week since the almost moment on her couch. A week of me replaying it every night, of imagining what would have happened if she hadn't pulled away. I told myself I'd keep my distance, but that resolve lasted exactly until Adam texted, asking if I could help his mom carry in a heavy box from the garage. When I showed up, she was in the driveway, hair loose, a thin cardigan slipping from one shoulder. "You came," she said, and there was something in her tone, relief, maybe, that made my chest tighten. We carried the box inside together, our arms brushing. She thanked me, but didn't move away, just stood there in the narrow hallway, close enough that I could see the faint freckles along her collarbone. "You've been avoiding me," she said suddenly. I laughed, but it came out uneven. "Maybe." Her eyes didn't leave mine. "Why?" The truth sat heavy in my throat. Because I wanted her in ways I shouldn't. Because every time I saw her, it got harder to pretend this wasn't real. Instead, I said. You know why. The air between us thickened. She stepped back, just far enough to lean against the wall, her hands gripping the edge of her cardigan. Adam trusts you, she murmured. You're like family to him. The words should have been a wall, but her voice cracked on the last syllable. And before I could stop myself, I stepped forward, closing the space she'd made. You think I don't know that? My voice was low, urgent. You think I haven't tried to? I broke off, because her eyes were wet now, not with sadness, but with something rawer. I'm not supposed to want this, she whispered. The confession hit me like a current. My hand found the doorframe beside her head, my body angled toward hers without touching. Then tell me to leave, I said. Tell me, and I'll go. She didn't. She just stood there, breathing shallowly, her gaze flicking between my eyes and my mouth. A sharp knock rattled the front door. We both jumped, but neither of us moved to answer. Whoever it was knocked again, harder this time. Her breath was warm on my chin. If we do this, she said softly, everything changes. I swallowed, my heart pounding so loud I barely heard the third knock. Maybe it already has. For a suspended second, the world narrowed to her hand lifting, almost touching my cheek, before she froze, her fingers hovering inches from my skin. The knocking stopped. Silence pressed in, and in that charged stillness, I knew we were one breath away from crossing the point of no return. It started with a text I wasn't supposed to see. Adam had left his phone on the counter while grabbing a drink from the fridge. A notification popped up. Mom, don't wait up. Might have company tonight. My stomach dropped. Company. By the time Adam left for the gym, I was already halfway to her house, telling myself it was just to return the hoodie she'd lent me. But when she opened the door, her expression shifted from surprise to something unreadable. You shouldn't be here, she said. Maybe not, I replied, stepping inside anyway. She closed the door slowly, her fingers lingering on the lock before turning toward me. Were you jealous? The question knocked the air out of me. Should I be? She tilted her head, studying me like she was searching for the truth behind my voice. You didn't answer. My pulse was erratic, my thoughts a blur. Because I don't want to know the answer. Her laugh was short, almost bitter. You think this is simple, don't you? No, I said, moving closer. I think it's the opposite. And that's why I can't stop. Her eyes narrowed slightly, but her voice was softer. You're playing with fire. Then burn with me, I said before I could think better of it. She froze, her breath catching, the space between us electric. For a heartbeat, I thought she'd step forward. Instead, she turned her head away, her hand coming up to her temple like she was steadying herself. You have no idea what this could do to Adam, to you. The sound of his name was like a sudden wall between us, but neither of us moved away. I could see every detail of her face, the faint line at the corner of her mouth, the tiny scar near her eyebrow. If you want me to stop, I whispered, say it. She didn't. Her lips parted, the smallest tremor in her breath, and I felt us both leaning in. A loud crash from outside shattered the moment. We both jerked toward the window. Someone had dropped a recycling bin at the curb. When I looked back at her, she was gripping the edge of the counter, knuckles white. One breath, one word, and we'd have been past the point of no return. The next day, Adam called me. His voice was tight. We need to talk. We met at the basketball court where we used to spend summers. He didn't waste time. My mom says you've been hanging around a lot. More than usual. I kept my face neutral. We talk sometimes. That's it. He studied me for a long moment, then smirked, but it wasn't friendly. Funny. She also said you've changed, and she's not sure she likes it. The words hit harder than I expected. She'd told him that. Adam tossed the ball from hand to hand. Look, man, I know my mom's attractive, but she's been through enough. Don't make it worse. I didn't answer. Couldn't. Because now my head was spinning with one thought. If she'd told him that, she was either trying to protect herself, or she was warning me to stay away for a reason I didn't know. That night, I went to her house anyway. When she opened the door, her face paled. You shouldn't be here, she said again. But this time, it wasn't caution in her voice. It was fear. Before I could ask, she stepped outside and pulled the door halfway closed behind her. Adam was here earlier, she said in a whisper. He asked me straight out if something was going on. My chest tightened. And you said? I told him no. Her eyes darted away. But he didn't believe me. Silence hung between us, broken only by the faint hum of traffic. Then maybe we should stop pretending, I said. She looked at me sharply, as if I'd just lit a match in a room full of gasoline. If you say that again, I won't be able to undo it. I stepped closer, my voice low. Maybe I don't want to undo it. Her lips parted, to tell me I was insane, maybe, or to finally close the distance between us. But before she could speak, the door behind her opened. Adam stood there, eyes flicking from her to me, and the look on his face told me everything had just changed. Adam's eyes locked on mine, sharp and unblinking. What's going on? He asked. His voice wasn't loud, but it was the kind of quiet that carried weight. Mrs. Carter stepped forward quickly, blocking his view of me. Nothing. We were just... Don't. Adam cut in. Don't lie to me. I felt the burn of his stare, the accusation in it. My first instinct was to deny everything, to let this moment slide back into the shadows. But the air was already heavy with too much truth, and I was tired of holding my breath. I stepped around her, meeting his gaze head-on. I care about your mom. Adam's jaw tightened. Care about her? Or want her? The silence that followed was answer enough. His hands curled into fists at his sides. Adam, she said gently, her voice trembling. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think, he snapped. He turned to me, his face a mix of disbelief and betrayal. You're supposed to be my friend. I am your friend, I said, my voice low but steady. But I can't pretend I don't. I glanced at her, the words catching. That I don't feel what I feel. Adam shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping. You think this is some kind of movie? She's not for you. She flinched at that, like the words cut deeper than he meant them to. Adam, I could see it then, the way she stood between us, torn, the weight of years in her posture. Her eyes met mine for a fraction of a second, and I saw it, the same longing I'd been carrying. But she turned to Adam instead. I never meant for this to happen, and I can't let it hurt you. Her voice was calm, but her fingers were gripping the edge of the doorframe so tightly her knuckles were white. This stops here, she said. For all of us. Adam exhaled sharply, brushing past us both into the night, muttering something under his breath I couldn't make out. We stood in the doorway, the cool air spilling in. She didn't close it, didn't move. I'm sorry, I whispered. Her eyes were glassy, but she smiled, a small, aching curve of her lips. You shouldn't be. The streetlight cast a pale glow over her face, and I thought about stepping forward, about ignoring every reason not to. But her hand came up, not to pull me in, to stop me. Some things, she said softly, we have to keep, even if it's just in here. She tapped her chest lightly. I nodded, though my throat was tight. The door closed between us, slow and final, but not empty. Because in her eyes, in that last lingering look, I knew she felt it too. What came next, neither of us knew. 2 weeks passed without a word between us. Adam and I had exchanged a few awkward texts, nothing more. Whatever friendship we had was hanging by a thread, and every time I passed her street, I slowed without meaning to, wondering if she was looking out the window at that exact moment. One rainy afternoon, my phone buzzed. Can you come by? No name, just the number. But I knew it. When I got there, she was on the porch, wrapped in a sweater, hair damp from the drizzle. Her eyes searched mine the way they used to, as if checking for something unspoken. Adam's moving in with his dad for a while, she said, voice quiet. I didn't know what to say. That solved one problem, and created a dozen others. I didn't call you here to start anything, she went on. I just didn't want things to end the way they did. The rain pattered softly on the awning above us. She gestured for me to come inside, and the moment I stepped into the kitchen, I felt the pull of memory, the same room, the same air, but different now. I thought I was protecting him, she said, leaning on the counter. But maybe I was protecting myself too. Her honesty caught me off guard. From what? Her eyes lifted to mine, and she gave the smallest, saddest smile. From wanting something I shouldn't. I moved closer, slow enough to give her the chance to stop me. She didn't. I'm not Adam, I said. I'm not a kid anymore. She exhaled, her shoulders relaxing just slightly. I know. The space between us was small now, and all the weeks of tension and silence hung in the air like a held breath. I thought about all the reasons not to cross the line, and how every one of them had already been broken in our hearts, if not in action. Her hand brushed mine on the counter. Not an accident. Not this time. We stood there like that for a long moment, the rain softening outside, the clock ticking somewhere in the background. And then, finally, she said, "If we do this, we do it knowing the world might not understand." I nodded. I can live with that. Her smile then wasn't sad anymore. It was real. The kiss was gentle at first, almost hesitant, but it was the kind of hesitation that comes right before surrender. When we pulled back, she laughed under her breath. "You're going to make my life complicated." "Yours?" I grinned. "Have you met me?" We stood there, hands still linked, as the rain tapered off and a faint light broke through the clouds. For the first time, it didn't feel like we were running from something. It felt like we were stepping toward it.